Hey, welcome back to Cream City Dreams. I'm your host, Megan Schultz, and this is the podcast where I introduce you to incredible Milwaukee women living their dream in the Cream City. And this week, I am concluding this series with Thekla Brumder Ross on attention, where we put it, who gets it, who steals it. And this week, we are getting specific. I am so excited to share this conversation because this is when we really get practical about what it means to change our behaviors, how to do it, pitfalls to look out for, symptoms of withdrawal, what to do when things get tough. So if you have been thinking about joining us in the month of June, or just in general, if you've been thinking about maybe reducing the amount of time you spend on screen, what that might look like, what that might feel like, and how to do it successfully, this episode is for you. So let's dive right in. Okay, welcome back, listeners. This is week 4 of my in-between series on Cream City Dreams, where I am joined by my friend and clinical psychologist, addiction specialist, and self-compassion and mindfulness thought leader, Thekla Brumder Ross. And we talked last week, Thekla, all about self-compassion and mindfulness. And I'm so grateful that you are back again today to really now help me, because I need this, and listeners who are following along, put this into practice. What does this actually look like when we go to change some habits and change behaviors? So welcome back.
Yay, I'm so excited. I love the topic of behavioral science. So
yes. Well, I think I have been getting a lot of feedback on this series, maybe more than any of my episodes, because I think it's hitting a nerve for people. I think it's very timely. I think we are not alone in thinking about where we put our attention and what we give it to, and whether we're giving too much. I think we talked last week about just how many hours a day and translated that into a month and a year. And it's like the average, and we were not even working with big numbers. We were working with the smaller averages. It's like a month a year that we spend on social media. And so I know I'm not the only one wanting to take a little detox. And so, so many people are reaching out, leaving voice memos, leaving messages, not so much about the little things that they're trying, although they're telling me that they're trying that too, but that they're like ready to jump in with me in this detox, this month of giving it up and taking them off phones and, everything that a detox includes.
And there's so much behavioral science around why we want the detox as opposed to just little behavior changes.
Yeah,
I'd love to get into that. But can I just note that between our episodes, I was thinking that you're reclaiming your full month with the month of June. You're reclaiming the month that you have lost. With your month of June. So I just want you to hold that on your heart and in a self-compassionate way as you move through the month of June. So when troubles come up, which we'll talk about on this episode today, because they will, we're imperfect, you're reclaiming your month.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. I feel like I should just take a moment and, I don't know,
pat yourself on the back. You should. You very much should. You very much should. Okay, here's the thing about full detoxes, though. That's like the full cleanse. I heard you say you're getting rid of Facebook and Instagram, and they're off your phone. And we, all of us, myself included, have these urges to want to do that. Like, I'm going to full cleanse, right? And it's really hard. Like, I don't know if you've tried to detox from sugar or certain things in your life or other drugs, but it's hard. I can say it. I've done it. It's really, really hard. So sustainable behavior change is done in really, really small increments. I, as I've mentioned before, I worked in addiction medicine, and I helped people with a lot of their health behaviors while they were in recovery. And I will never forget, I worked with a patient for months and months and months as we laid his clothes out to anticipate, to prepare for, to get ready for the exercise. We spent so many months, laying out the clothes. Where's the exercise machine? Who are they going to meet? All of those behaviors to prepare for the little increments of change in bringing exercise into his life. And he's still doing it today because it was sustainable. It wasn't like he ran to the gym after not having exercised at all, and then he was there 7 days a week trying to do it for 2 hours, because that intensity is not sustainable over time,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Now, do detoxes have a purpose and a place? And I get where a lot of people are wanting to go, which is I just want to know the feeling. I want to explore the feeling of what it's like to not have it in my life, and can I do it?
yeah.
And so my question for folks is just be mindful. We're imperfect. Like, there are gonna be challenges. I want you to prepare yourself for that. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about withdrawal symptoms. We're going to talk about, how what you do after something happens like that, where maybe you go back on it or something, or you borrow your friend's phone at a dinner party and you're in the corner checking out Instagram.
Yeah.
What do we do and how do we prepare ourselves? And then how can we, and I'm here for you in the month of July and August, of like, okay, what are the small steps of change if you do want to go back on it? Like, what does sustainable relationship look like
Mm.
with regard to social media?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought past the end of June, but yeah, you're right. Coming back into it, if I decide to come back into it, which realistically I probably will.
We don't need to answer that question right now.
Yeah,
We can just
yeah.
let that be out there in the ethos.
But knowing that there is more work to be done, even coming back to it, I think is helpful. What you said just before that reminded me of why gym memberships shoot up in January and then nobody's going by February, right? Because we all go into it with the best of intentions. Really, I mean it. And then we fall flat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am in the business. I always tell people I'm in the business of sustainable behavior change, because those are sustainable behavior change and behavior change are two different things.
Yeah. Yes. Well, one of the things I was talking about on my digest last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, was just some of the fears I have,
Mhm.
because, you join these platforms. I can't remember when I joined. Facebook was the first one, maybe 2007. I can't remember when it actually, but it felt like I wasn't one of the first adopters, but it was pretty early, and used it as a way to, I was living abroad, so it was a way to keep in touch with my family, and it really did serve a purpose back then. And now I don't use it for that really at all. I hardly ever post. I mean, I post, that's not true. I post for the podcast, but it's rare that I post personal stuff anymore. And part of giving it up is a little bit of grief, though, over what I'm going to miss out on, right? Is so I guess FOMO is one of my fears in giving up the socials, because what if I miss out on play dates or school events, or what if somebody has a baby and I don't know about it, or what if somebody dies and I don't know about that, all of these things that I do get, there's that fear, there's that FOMO, which is not enough to stop me from not trying it for a month. I want to see what it feels like, and maybe that's why it's like I'm just doing it for a month instead of
Mhm.
forever. Do you have
Yeah.
thoughts on
Yes.
that?
Yes, yes. First of all, we are kindred spirits, because I also joined Facebook because I was living abroad in high school. So I hear you on that
Yeah.
concept. Let me just pause in that. There's something that you said that struck me at a visceral level. I felt it like all over my body in shivers. You said, "What if somebody dies and I don't know about it?"
Mm.
And I had this like gut feeling like, do I want to find out about my loved one's death on social, or do I want to find out about it by talking to my family members and my neighbors and my friends? And my parents are in a phase of their life where they know a lot of people who are passing away, and they have a remarkable network of friends and community members who pick up the phone and call one another and share the news,
Mm.
and they read the obituaries, and they are part of spiritual groups and religious communities and clubs that share news with one another. I don't know if any of our listeners have watched Join or Die, plug for the documentary. It's on Netflix.
Mm. Mm-mm.
If you've read the book Bowling Alone, it's a lot
Oh yeah.
about that, but
Yeah.
how we've moved away from clubs and groups and spiritual communities where we used to get all this information. And now we're expecting it from social. But again, back to the values that we talked about in our last episode, is that the place you want to hear the information? I had a
Mm.
family member just die, went to his funeral. I'm not on social. I didn't hear about it on social, and I made it to the funeral and the services and was able to, fully participate. So,
Mm.
um, just another values kind of exploration question for us. The FOMO piece, I just want to say, so social media is founded on the basis of social comparison. So that is intended. It's intended to make you feel left out and like you're going to miss something.
Mm.
I went off Instagram in the pandemic. I don't know if I've shared this yet on the pod, but I went off because of the incredibly alarming research on kids, especially girls, and what social media is doing to their anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation and behavior. I can bring up the extreme statistics on that, but I looked at my 9-year-old who was curiously watching me scroll and she was getting interested. And I was like, if I'm going to tell her to not be on it, then I have to be off of it.
Mm.
And I don't want her to be on it for her own well-being. So I should probably be off it for my own well-being. All of that to say, my initial month of FOMO, I reached out to my friends. I called them and I was like, hi, analog friend here. I'm off socials. They already know that I write letters. If you're a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, anybody in my network, you have probably received a letter from me in the mail, US Postal Service. Love it. And probably not one, like many. I love writing letters. It's a huge part of my self-compassion practice.
Mm.
I write more letters to my friends because I'm not on social. Do they love that endlessly more than me DMing them or passively observing their life? Social is observational. Real
Mm.
life is participatory. Like I'm participating in my friends' lives when I pick up the phone and call them, versus passively observing them on social media. So I find I have a much more participatory relationship in my friendships. I'm much more active. They're deeper because they're not sitting up here with like, what did you do last weekend? It's like, how
Mm.
do you feel? I'm calling them to say, I thought about your mom who passed away 2 years ago. I think today's her birthday. I probably wouldn't have said that on social, but I'm saying that when I'm picking up the phone and calling or walking or writing a letter. So you can engage your audience to say, like, you could say to me, Tekla, I have FOMO. So could we schedule a couple walks or make sure that we have things that are together, if we connected on social a lot?
Yeah.
What else did you say was a fear or concern? You had FOMO, you had.
Well, just the idea of grieving and loss, and that I think it's important. I mentioned in that same digest, this podcast that I listened to called Off the Grid, and she talked about an exercise, or maybe she even had it on the podcast of just sitting down and writing, journaling about what are you going to miss, and it's okay. That is okay, and it's understandable. And again, going back to the self compassion, not to beat yourself up about it, because it's okay to grieve something that you are giving up or going to lose. I don't know if that comes out in the other work you do with addiction. And again, I want to be mindful of throwing the word addiction out around social media, but in a similar vein, or I can't remember how you described it in the first episode. I know social media and phone addiction is not in the DSM, but there's some correlations or.
Yeah, there are correlations to gambling addiction is in the current DSM-5. I think we're very much in the exploration here around digital addiction. And I think, like alcohol, there's a continuum of use, right?
Mm.
From abstinence to severe unhealthy use, and that, we all fall somewhere at some point along the continuum. And we can talk about, you mentioned the grief and the loss. That's huge. And that comes up in the rooms of recovery and with the disease of addiction all the time, because the drug or the alcohol was somebody's friend. It helped them. It helped them
Mm.
survive. It helped them move through trauma or protect them or numb out or avert whatever was painful. And it's no longer serving them. It's
Yeah.
no longer serving them. Back to the values clarification. It's no longer serving them in their life. But that doesn't mean we can't grieve the loss of it, the ritual of it, the
Mm.
ritual of the time of day. So again, I brought up in an earlier pod times of day that are easier or harder for me around my awareness with my digital use. So pay attention to that, Megan. Like pay attention to when it's more challenging and when do you need more support and maybe what buffers you can put in place. So if it is harder right before bed, what book are you really excited to finish in the month of June and that you're going to
Mm.
talk about with me or other friends or people in your community, or maybe you're really excited to like read a book with one of your kids and you're going to do that in the month. What are the things that you're going to put in place? We call them people, places, and things in the rooms of recovery that you're going to set up and plan and think about to help prepare you for when those urges and cravings come up.
Mm.
But you also asked me about grief, and I'm going to share. We have an amazing grief doula in our community. in Milwaukee. Her name is Abby Golzer, and she Garnet in the Moon. I don't know if any folks have heard about her, but she's amazing. And she said something to me about grief that hits so close to home. I just have to share it with folks. Grief is what I knew to be true is no longer true.
Mm. Wow. Grief is what I knew to be true is no longer true. What an all-encompassing definition of grief.
She really helped me. Abby really helped me see how much I was grieving things in my everyday life. So not thinking about grief and like the death, somebody died, but how I have many moments of grief throughout my day. I met Abby in a time in my life when I was going through immense amount of change. I changed states, I changed jobs. My son had a tragic accident. And she really helped me see that I was grieving a lot of my everyday life in
Mm.
as I moved into my new life and my new chapter of my life. And it was so grounding. It continues to be grounding. So I just invite that for folks who experience grief around social media if you're going on the detox journey with you, Megan.
Yeah, thank you for that. Again, awareness. And also something you said, going back to the three, just to remind people who may not have tuned in last week, the three components of self compassion were the awareness of it, the being kind to ourselves, and then I think you called
Common
it
humanity.
common humanity. Yeah. So the sharing it with somebody else. And I just think that grief around this, or I mean, of course around any kind of grief really, but sharing that with somebody too is such an important part of the processing and the kindness to ourselves.
And if grief comes up for you, as you know, because we talked about we reach for the social or the digital when we're trying to avert or numb from the discomfort, the suffering, right? And
Mm.
my definition of suffering is really inclusive. I said it last podcast. It's any moment in time when your experience is other than what you want it to be. And so if we've numbed for years on social, stuff might be coming up in this detox period around grief, around loss, around anger, around sadness. So I love your journaling. That's a great strategy. I just mentioned an incredible resource. Abby and the Grief Doula. There's a really cool new app out called Fellow where you can talk to other people who have gone through the same lived experience as you. So if you're, having grief or loss about a certain thing that happened in your life, you can find another peer to talk to who might have gone through a similar experience.
Wow.
Um,
That's
yeah, it's an incredible
Yeah, that's
resource.
interesting.
And then, then there's obviously also therapy, but also finding community and groups. Again, we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but reconnecting with community and groups and other people are going through it and us, because
Yeah.
that's what the podcast is for, is to bring people together over this.
Yeah. Well, and I love your idea too about what are the things you're going to do to replace, or what are you going to replace social media with, right? I think I mentioned I was taking that class on attention for the last 6 weeks. And one of the things she had us do is to write down just this long list of what could you do instead? What are those we talked in that week on the brain? What are the dopamine hits, right? That also give you dopamine, that aren't a screen, that aren't social media, that isn't a like or a thumbs up, right? And so, like on my list was go for a walk, have coffee with somebody, gather some women together. I love women's gatherings, letters like you said, and also voice memos. This is a new thing. I love sending voice memos now, and it's so much fun to give and to get those. What else did I write? Volunteering, dancing, cleaning, and organizing. I'm not I might take that one back. I'm not 100% sure that's the kind of dopamine I need, but I do like to organize a good drawer every once in a while. In all seriousness, just what are those things that you could be doing instead? That question again that we talked about in the week on self-compassion is, what do I want versus what do I need? Answering some of those in what we choose as well is probably a good habit to get into.
Yeah. So well said. This book that's coming with Coach Kit and myself is all about that, what you could be doing instead, and how
Mm,
you can be reconnecting to yourself and others in the planet, and how much opportunity there is in just those small moments. And I love what you said. I love the things that you're excited, those dopamine hits you're excited to get. Voice memo me when you get them, because, like, let it last longer, because it's going to be great, and it's going to be really fun. And other things I imagine will come up for you as you start exploring
yeah.
and have more spaciousness. But in case other things come up like fear, loss, I wanted to talk about some of the withdrawal symptoms that
Yes,
people
yes.
may
Thank you.
experience just so you can prepare for them. So psychological, emotional, some anxiety, some nervousness. That's because the behavior you were doing, you're no longer doing. Maybe
Mm.
even some irritability and mood swings or anger. So, like, note that, because
Yeah.
remember, without the numbing and the averting that you're doing with the phone and social media, you're going to actually feel your feelings more.
Mm.
So, the journal, keep it close by. I have one in my purse. I have one on my desk. I have one next to my bed. And people, I'm not a journaler where I'm like writing perfect narratives over here. No, I'm writing like bullet points
Mm.
because that for me, it's getting it out of my body. So
Hmm.
I'm noting that maybe some depression or sadness because again, you're the grief, the loss of the friend and what's changed. Maybe some restlessness and agitation because that's how you calmed your nervous system when you were a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
Have you ever walked into a party and you didn't know anyone? So you're like, I'm just going to pull out my phone and look at
Yeah.
something as
Yeah.
opposed to, yeah. So you're going to notice like that's more of that's going to come up. Maybe some loneliness from the FOMO. That's the pick up the phone moment. That's the call your friend, phone a friend,
Yeah. Yeah.
or write the letter. Boredom. Oh my gosh, this one.
Yes.
Um,
When you said this, that's the first place my mind went because what
really?
am I going to do instead? What, like, I just have to sit here? I just have to sit here with myself? Wait, wait, this is boring. But how often am I saying to my kids, just be bored? Get off the screen. You need to learn how to be bored. Okay, so do you, mom.
Oh,
You
I
know?
love this. Full circle back to us. This all started because we were pointing the finger at our kids and not looking at the three fingers pointing back at us. So
Yeah.
well said. I'm going to hold up a mirror to you, Megan, because you are one of the most creative people I know. And I can tell you that by putting your social away, your creativity is going to flow.
Mm.
And your art and your painting and all the beautiful things that you do are going to have spaciousness and time. So if there's a gift that I could wish for you in this month of June is to let your creative freedom flow
Mm.
because boredom is the space where creative energy flows.
Yes. I feel that. I feel that. I already have a long list of like, oh, yes, I can get back to that. Remember that idea that I had that I wanted to try? That not that I didn't have time for it, but that I didn't make time for it, right? Or that I chose to spend my time differently when I could have been putting it there. So yeah, thank you for that reminder too, that I have, in addition to dancing and walking and voice memos and things, I have some creative things that I want to work on. And maybe listeners do too.
Oh, and if they don't know that they do, they do.
Yeah.
I mean, my sister is incredibly creative, and I always had it written off that she was the creative one. Turns out I strongly desire creativity, and I've just had to allow myself to be imperfect in my own creativity and
Mm.
just try it. That's why it's so nice to have a 6-year-old or a 9-year-old when you're trying to be creative because they're just trying things out too. So it's fun to do
Yes.
that. May I name a few other behavioral and physical symptoms just so people are aware
Yes,
of some
please.
other so strong urges or cravings to want it. Those are gonna happen within the first 3 days. The first 3 days, you're gonna have this urge. You might even like reach for it.
Mhm.
Wow, notice that I'm reaching for my phone. You might have some preoccupation with thoughts about missing out. Name those. Be a reporter, like we said. So the three components of self-compassion. The first one is mindfulness. Be a reporter to those thoughts and feelings. They
Mm.
will pass, just like sugar craving. They will pass, but we have to name them to be able to
Mm.
let them go. Difficulty concentrating on offline tasks. That we talked about in the brain episode
Mm.
because you're used to the shortened reinforcement period of the dopamine hits. So remember, I said that if you're used to social media all the time, the real world feels less rewarding because the time warp, the dopamine hits come slower. You
Yeah.
know, I'm on a walk and I see a tulip, and that's one. And then maybe I wait until I have an interaction with my neighbor a couple of blocks down. Like that's not the same as the repetitive videos you're seeing on TikTok that are coming
Mm.
every second.
Yes.
So just paying attention to that. You may notice social withdrawal. Some folks, and it may be harder to reach out because you're not used to picking up the phone. You're like, do people really want to talk to me? They do. Your friends really want to talk to you.
Mm.
Turn the volume down on that inner critic. That's the self-kindness part of self-compassion. Turn the volume down. They want to talk to you. They want to hear from you. They know you're doing this. Schedule those visits, like get out there. So yes, the social withdrawal. And then fantasizing. Some people might fantasize about the digital activities they could be doing. So
Mm,
just notice those physical symptoms, insomnia if you used it to go to bed and so now it's hard to fall asleep,
mm.
headaches, blurry vision because you're used to looking at a screen as opposed to having the distance where you're looking further away. Tech neck, you might start to notice that your neck and your back feel different because you're like sitting up fully as opposed to looking down at your phone. Changes in appetite. I mentioned I threw myself under the bus. I'm somebody who often eats my lunch in front of the screen because of work. And
Mm.
so, what's it like? I try at least twice a week to eat my lunch away from the screen so that I can feel the difference of eating with technology than versus without technology.
Yeah.
And then some people may experience like rapid heartbeat or tense shoulders or those, but again, just be aware of them, notice them, you'll move through them. Um, get on the Cream City Dreams podcast email list. Let us know how it's going for you. We want to know.
Side note, one of the things I said is that we should plant ourselves in a cafe one morning and maybe just put it out to the newsletter subscribers who might be following along. Like, we're going to be at Stone Creek. Come join us and let's talk about how we're all doing. So,
We'll be there. Stone Creek on
yes.
Downer. Here, note somewhere in the month of June, we will put it
Yes.
out there on the email list that
Yes.
we will be
So,
at Stone Creek.
subscribe to the newsletter, creamcitydreams.com. I wanted to ask too, what if, all right, today's Wednesday, Sunday is June 1st, that's when they're coming off. What if on June 5th, I'm like, oh, I just got to sneak a peek? Or
Uh-huh.
some reason that feels like insurmountable that I must hop on. I think I mentioned at the beginning, the reason I'm doing this detox is always because I feel like I'm just an all or nothing person. So then what? It's like I blew it and I'm done.
Uh-huh.
What do I
Yep.
do? Help
So
me.
that's where you reach for your tools. First of all, we're human, we're imperfect, we're going to make mistakes, you're going to mess up. I made a funny joke about being the person at the dinner party who finds their friend's phone and goes in the corner and looks at social. It may happen.
Mm,
Um, we're imperfect. And again, this is an extreme behavior change. You're going from all or nothing, as you
yeah.
very well articulated. And so this is not a small increment that's easy to sort of implement like slowly over time. This is like a big shift and change. So prepare yourself for that. That's why we talked about the withdrawal symptoms, and setting yourself up for success. So what are you going to do if you do grab your phone and you do go back on? Okay, then how do you get back into your this plan that you've created to be off of it? So how do you be kind to yourself in that moment? Megan, I noticed that you really wanted it and you grabbed for it, and that's okay. You're imperfect. And go back to values clarification. Do you still want to be on this journey in the month of June to reclaim your month of June? Yes, I do. Okay. Mindful awareness. How do we get back to that beautiful place? Right. And so then you go
Mm,
back to really resetting yourself. We call it return to use with the disease of addiction. It is very, very, very common. It's common with most chronic medical conditions. Let me destigmatize the disease of addiction here. Diabetes, common all the time, to have relapses and things like that. So we're imperfect. It's going to happen. Mistakes are going to happen, and that's okay. Hear me say that's okay. It's really about how you and how quickly you recover from the returning. That's the most important, and how kind you can be to yourself, reaching out to me, a friend, someone else, noting it, writing in your journal, telling your partner or your kids, oh, I was really hard. I've been going off, and then I went back on and it was really hard and this is how I felt and now I'm going to recommit and this is how I'm going to take a small step today. So when you recommit, I really encourage you to make a much smaller goal. So I'm going
mm,
to recommit for this afternoon, and then I'm going to recommit for this evening, and then I'm going to recommit for tomorrow. We say in the rooms of recovery, one day at a time. Some people say 1 minute at a time. So
mm.
make the steps smaller. You heard me say that in the beginning, make smaller behavior change. You're going to get more confidence because once you go past 1 minute or 1 hour or one afternoon, you've made it past those and then you have confidence to go a little bit longer and a little bit longer. When the goal is too big, it can sometimes really harp on our confidence.
Yeah, I see that. I can see that. Do you recommend for people who are going off something, as I am, and as many listeners may be, do we tell people? Do we put a vacation message on our emails or on our socials that says, "Hey, I'm not here"?
Yeah, that's up to people.
Okay.
And let me just put out an invitation for people who are joining. Everybody can do their own thing, but maybe if you're inviting people on a June detox, everybody starts with one day at a time. So you see how far you can get. Can you get to June 30th?
Mm.
And you take it one day at a time. That is my recommendation from a sustainability and a small increment standpoint, right? I can do it on June 1st. Okay. Then I got June 2nd. All right. And then I got all the way to June 3rd, half the day or something. Right. And so we all have friends who can get to a certain level, join us on that journey, start at June 1st, and then see how it goes. Right.
Mm.
Because that's a
Hmm.
much more approachable. And maybe you'll get to June 30th and you'll love it. Like how fantastic and amazing. About setting up notifications to friends and people, that's up to you. I'm somebody, as I said, when I went off, I did tell my friends, I'm like, hi, analog friend over here, just so you know, because I didn't want them messaging me and being like, why isn't she on? Or I wasn't going to accept their friendship and I wasn't there. I told you I went on Facebook when I lived abroad. This is an amazing story. I went on Facebook when I lived abroad when I was 16 years old in Bolivia. Amazing, life-changing experience, made incredible friends for life. And they're all on social and they were looking to find me in my 40s. And we had stayed in
Mm.
touch, but not really. And some people's address changed and a couple moved to Europe and a couple moved to other places. And they couldn't find me. And so they were looking all over and then they found my website. And so they sent an email on the website, all of them together from them. And it was the most joy. I was weeping when I got it because how wonderful of an experience to like have to work so hard to find somebody. And I know that sounds backwards. The idea of social media is to connect and bring us closer together. And I haven't said it enough, so let me just pause and say there are many benefits to social media. Social media is intended to bring us together and connect us and to spread information in a positive and healthy way. When you're getting curious about your behaviors around technology, you may notice, like when you ask yourself, oh, am I going on it just to numb out or avert? Or am I going on it to actually connect, to do my work, to spread joy, to connect to my purpose? There are many
Hmm.
times when I say to myself, yes, I'm going on LinkedIn so that I can connect to my purpose and meet new people who are connected to the same important things that I'm doing in the world. Yes, that is an important time to engage in social.
Mm.
It's the time when we're averting and numbing and social comparison and those things that maybe are the times that we don't want to engage in it. So there are positives to social media. And people do use it as a way to connect to others all over the world. So, don't let us think that we've only shared the negative. There's a lot of
Yeah,
positive.
well, sure. And I was thinking this morning, actually, as I was preparing for this, we call it social media. I think it was intended when it was created, decades ago, to be social, to connect people. And is that a fair term still? As you say, in some cases, yes. Or is it also isolation media because it's, we're sitting in isolation, really not really connecting? So maybe, again, as we've been talking about, to pause and ask yourself, am I doing this to be social or am I feeling more isolated by doing this? So which kind of media is it? But then I was just thinking about your friend Jay, who wrote the book Reclaim Your Mind. And he really has suggestions because he's basically saying it's here. We live with it. We are in the 21st century. It's 2025. It's not going anywhere. So, how can you bring balance to it? How can you, kind of as we're talking about it, I feel like, be aware of the reasons that you use it and use it mindfully? And if it feels good, that's okay. Give yourself a little break. You're allowed to feel good. I mean, maybe not like 10 episodes in a row good because that's binging. And maybe that's not so good, right? But I appreciated his book because he was very honest in maybe even the opposite of what I'm trying to do with this all or nothing detox. But I feel like I just, in the same way that years ago I did a 10-day detox diet, where you give up, I don't know, it feels like everything except chicken and vegetables, but like caffeine and alcohol and gluten and all the things. And I did it for 10 days. And actually by day 10, I was like, I feel like I'm on top of the world. This feels great, even though days 1, 2, and 3 were horrible as heck. But I'm okay with doing this month because I want to see what it feels like you said in the beginning. I want to see if I can do it. And I want to see what I create while I'm not on the socials and just what I do with the month, right? But it probably isn't going to be for the rest of my life. And so I think I'll probably revisit his book to just remind myself of how and give myself permission to use it in a way that is healthy, or to reintroduce it back into my life in a way that feels more generative, I guess.
Yeah, I told Jay when I read his book, I said, it's like the harm reduction of the digital world. And he laughed because we joke about it. But yeah, this is really about how to have healthier digital world. And I'm going to put in a plug for Boston Children's. They have a digital wellness lab. You can go to the digitalwellnesslab.org, and they have a group of teenagers who are creating how do we have a healthier digital world. And they created rules around mindful media use and understanding bias and AI and how to analyze platform settings and tools from the perspective of well-being and mental health. Like these are kids saying we need to put some boundaries and structure around the
Mm.
digital world in a way that we can remain healthy. People ask me, what is your area of expertise in the digital world? And I'm a digital wellness thought leader. Yes, I have an extreme background in addictions, and I'm here to talk about that there are digital addictions. There are. And like food, we're going to coexist with technology and innovation for the rest of our lives. As I said in an earlier podcast, technology is going to be with us forever, and innovation, it always has been. It's a foundation for our society, and likely technology is going to be in our body in the coming years. So, how do we live in relationship with it and to it, just like we do with food? And how do we have a balanced and healthier relationship to it? I really encourage people to go to the digitalwellnesslab.org. I think you'll be shocked by what the teens want. They want structure, they want parental controls, they want guidance, they want digital literacy.
Mm.
They want it to feel safe. They want to have structure around it.
Mm.
Kids thrive in structure. Turns out so do adults. Why we feel so overwhelmed with technology and social media is that there's no structure. It is the chaotic, free, crazy, totally unruly out there-ness of it all right now. We need to create a little health and wellness structure around it to help us feel informed about how to engage with it.
Mm. Oh my gosh, I feel like that is just coming full circle in the whole reason that we set out to do this series, because we were looking at our kids and what can we tell our kids and how are we going to make sure that they are safe online and, all the things. And here it is that maybe they're going to tell us. The kids will lead us there.
We're inviting a pediatrician to come speak at our school as a follow-up to our series on digital literacy. And as I was thinking about questions for her, one of the things I want to ask is how do we empower this generation to lead us, to guide us? We often make mistakes in older generations, and we look for our younger generations to guide us. And boy, do I ever, as a teacher of self-compassion to medical students and to physicians and to CEOs and parents, like, boy, do I ever look to the next generation to help us create a more mindful relationship to our tech.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for coming on this season and this journey with me. It has been such a joy to talk about this and to focus on it and to really dig deep into these thoughts about attention and social media and digital literacy and how we get it right and the compassion that we have to give ourselves when we don't. Maybe if you're open to coming back to do some follow up to see how the month went, maybe even to help me transition and to help listeners who've joined transition back into what it looks like after a detox and how you reclaim that relationship in a healthy way,
Beautiful. I'm here for it. Just hear me say, we're all imperfect. This is all messy, so there's no right or wrong. You're coming at this for where you are right now. All data is good data, and just explore it. Be curious about it. Love yourself throughout the journey.
And listeners, let us know. Let us know how it's going. Sign up for the newsletter so that if we do have a gathering, you can join us. You can meet us in real life, not even on the socials. I'm not going to post about it. It's only coming out in the newsletter because we would love to have coffee and just check in. And Thekla, even if it's just you and me who show up, I'm there for it.
I'm there for it.
Thank you so much, Thekla.
Thank you, Megan. Incredible podcast. Cream City Dreams, y'all. Whoop, whoop.
All right, listeners. I hope this series has inspired you. I hope it's given you some food for thought about your own relationship with technology and social media. Even if it just means right now you're just noticing, even if it means right now you are just paying just a little closer attention when you reach for that phone, or when you're at a stoplight, or in line at the grocery store, or food for thought for where you keep your phone. Is it right next to your bed? Is it the first thing you reach for in the morning, or the last thing you put down at night? Just food for thought. And again, without judgment, but just with noticing. That is the first step of self-compassion. If you want a recap of the 3 steps to self-compassion, go back to listen to last week's episode with Thekla, where we break down mindfulness and self-compassion and what that looks like and how to incorporate that. And if you're going to join us, I would love to know. I would love to support you. And we would love to invite you to coffee. We'll find a morning sometime, probably mid-June, just for a check-in to see how we're doing. But you won't know about that unless you're on the newsletter. So creamcitydreams.com. You'll find the sign up there. I will continue to check in on my Friday Digest to let you know how it's going, how the detox is going, whether I've stuck with it, what's been hard, what's been easy, what I've noticed. So tune in on Fridays in June to hear me chat about that, as well as the things that have been inspiring me or the ways you can connect with Cream City Dreams guests in real life over the summer. But I will be back next week with the first episode of season 8, all about joy. It is going to be a summer of joy, and boy, am I excited. I can't wait to introduce these women to you and what they do to bring more joy to Milwaukee. So tune in next week to hear more. Until then, Milwaukee, keep on dreaming.